Introduce it? Do you want me to introduce it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the name of our podcast, Dawn, and our friends here on Instagram, is Keys and Gears.
And tell us why we said keys and gears.
Keys and Gears. Well, because I'm all about keys. And Mark?
I'm a former race car driver, so I'm all about gears and financing. So the gears that make the keys happen.
There you go. The gears that make the keys happen. Because there's a lot that is not sexy to talk about during an HGTV episode.
Right.
Or really translates well into Zillow video. That is the key.
Yes.
To real estate.
And there's so many different keys, right?
And there's so many different gears.
And so many different gears that all have to work together to get you into a home. And that's what we're here for. We want to kind of, show you behind the scenes, discuss things that you probably don't hear on other podcasts.
Right.
And discuss things that are very important to having successful experience.
Very
in
well
buying
said.
a home. So, and selling a home too.
Very well said. And I think both of us have had an extraordinary amount of interesting, maybe contrarian experiences in real estate. And maybe that's one reason why we do so well now. And that is we are quite good at thinking outside of the box. Mm-hmm. And the best real estate transactions are those that involve thinking outside of the box.
You have to come up with a lot of solutions along the way, don't you?
Absolutely.
Anticipating.
Absolutely.
So you hit on something. So tell us about your journey to real estate. How did you come to this expertise?
Well, honestly, Mara, I can't imagine, and as I say honestly, I'm going to cut myself. That's terrible. That sounds like I'm lying the rest of the time.
Right.
Okay. To be direct. How about that? I cannot imagine a time I have not been in something home related. It probably starts way back to my parents discovering this show y'all might find familiar called This Old House with a guy by the name of Bob Vila.
Bob Vila, yes.
And I grew up in a home that we had a 13-inch black and white TV. That was our TV. Mm-hmm. And it lived in my parents' room. Because they did not trust us sneaking out and watching it.
Right. As they did back then.
As they did back then. And so watching it was a big deal. And they thought that was just the coolest show.
Yeah.
And
because it actually was cool.
It was a very cool show.
It was a very interesting show. Mm-hmm. I didn't find that out till later. I wasn't exposed to that show. But anyway, do continue. So Bob Vila got you started in your brain thinking about homes.
Well, it was just, I guess because it was not, TV was just a unique special event thing. How about that? Right. To have that be one of the only shows I got to watch, maybe that elevated the excitement of home.
Yeah.
And then my parents bought This Old House. They did, in fact, do it. And so I went from watching it on TV to actually Dad giving me a sledgehammer and saying, hey, we're going to take out this wall.
How old were you at that point?
At that point, 8 years old.
Wow.
And there's a picture of me somewhere in the family archives.
So real estate was in your blood, but I kind of know a little bit about your background, but you didn't end up there until much later. So
fair enough.
What happened in between?
So fair enough. Did several mission trips. Where did that come from? Mission trips overseas with an organization that we actually built a building from the ground up to leave behind. Okay. And we were there for 3 months. The first one was in the Philippines.
And how old were you at that point?
13 years old.
Okay.
And I was in charge, since I had horses growing up, I was in charge of going to the village and getting the water buffalo to bring back to help us carry supplies up the hill. And naive me, I did not realize you're not supposed to ride water buffalo. So you can imagine.
Did you try to hop on its back?
I did.
Oh my gosh.
And bless that water buffalo's heart, he played along with the game. Anyway, but I did manage to empty out the village because they thought that was completely fascinating to watch this American hop on a water buffalo.
Yeah, I'm sure that was hilarious to them.
But I managed to haul an awful lot of tin roof and concrete block up to the top of the hill, and we built a multi-purpose building for this village that was busy. It was in the throes of combating the Muslims that were invading their area and killing them in the middle of the night. And so they needed a place during the rain season to just chat and gather. So that's what we did. Was we built this gigantic a multi-purpose building. So when I wasn't hauling that, because I was the smallest one on the trip, there was 20 of us teenagers, and I learned how to float concrete by balancing on the end of a 4-inch by 2-inch board that had been toe-nailed like a series. So it was like the end, it was like a 20-foot long run, and the guys would pour the concrete, which by the way was hand mixed.
Yeah.
And then Bess, with a little bag of dried concrete, would walk out the 4 inches with a giant float that was almost as tall as me, and toss out the dried concrete like you do, and very slowly float it so it'd be beautiful and glistening, and then the guys would slowly pull me backwards. That was interesting because it was like no pressure. If you fall off that 4 inches, your feet are stuck in the concrete, and everyone's gonna be mad at you because they got to do it all over. I'm like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so that was my background, and then from then my life, I've ended up just in older houses that have always, I've just felt compelled to adopt and love and resuscitate.
and you also became a business owner, in your later years. You did something non-real estate related, but found your way back to real estate.
Thank you, dear.
But I want to kind of dive into that journey of, you did your own thing. You had an educational company that you did, and so talk about that for a minute and how you got back to real estate from teenage years between that and real estate.
My goodness, have I told you how much I love you today? Okay, about me. So from there, I did another couple more trips, and then yes, I did start a family, and I saw a pain point, and that was there was a company that was supplying kids school supplies, and they weren't doing, I felt, a very good job. They weren't honoring what the need was, which is to set kids up for success.
Right.
You could buy these pre-packaged school supplies, which help moms, but they were full of tools that were worthless and would fall apart on the kids.
Yes.
So with a guy from Chicago, actually I started, and another guy, investor down here in Texas, in Dallas area, started a school supply company, and we created, first day of school.
Yep.
We and so it went from 0 to about 40,000 kids in about a year and a half. And it was bananas.
Yes,
it was very interesting because it taught me quickly how to manage people, how to manage supply lines, how to manage projects, which is very apropos to remodeling a house
and anticipating problems and resolving issues. Customer service. I mean, there's
that.
So many
Especially,
layers.
Those of you out there that are mama bears.
Yeah.
The tolerance level of messing up in that sort of business is like
zero.
Because
especially moms,
you can
right?
get 40,000 kids
they'll
right.
rip you apart.
Or 39,999 kids right. And if you get just one kid wrong, then you are 100% wrong 100% of the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So to that, so being a firstborn and now living through that experience, I expect this at all times.
Well, and
do my darndest to hit that.
It also taught you to be precise and to be knowledgeable and not to BS your way through something. Because they would never let that go, right?
No.
I mean, if you BS'd your way through with a mom, you're done, right? So
absolutely.
But how did you get from that to real estate? That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
I assume you closed the company down or sold it or whatever.
I did, because I discovered that to do a company well, it has to really be your number one priority. Yeah. And I was raising kids at the time.
You had 2 kids.
And they needed to be my number one priority.
Right.
So I signed it off, I let it go, and about the same time, my mother-in-law hit a wall health-wise. And she was an interior decorator, designer, and she always practiced on her own house. And so the universe is what it is, and it took away her mind. and she had a home that was disassembled.
Oh boy, my.
And so, as a recently unemployed person,
Yeah.
I no longer had that
Yeah.
business. I was volunteered by the family to put the house together, and so did that, and happened to hit right when the market was the worst. Mm-hmm. We all remember those years. And when the house went up for sale, there was five other homes within sight of that home being for sale, and those homes have been on the market for 3, 5,
Yeah.
8, 9 months.
Yeah.
The agent that I partnered with,
Time out. Did you have a real estate license at that point already?
I did not have
you
a
did
real
not.
estate
Okay.
license at
so
that
you had
point.
to partner with an agent.
Partnered with an agent, and she has since retired. But anyway, we put it up for sale, and we had multiple offers like within 2 weeks.
So that kind of reintroduced you to real estate and rekindled that love of being in real estate.
Absolutely.
You know, that
Absolutely.
experience.
And this sweet lady's encouragement too, because she was like, holy heck. She goes, because I just kept telling her, thank you.
You have a knack for it.
Thank you. And she was just like, no. She's like, I got multiple listings. This is the only one that did this. It was totally because of you. And I was like, oh, well, it takes a team to do these things. But anyway, so she encouraged me.
Yeah.
And so then, of course, school is not cheap.
Yes.
And I'm raising a young family, so we had no money. And it's funny how the universe works. Shortly after that, we had a giant windstorm, and it blew down our fence.
Yeah.
And my sweet neighbor, she'd been working with my husband at the time, and she came to pay him back her portion of the fence that we shared to put back up. And by golly, she was just like, I owe you this much. I had no idea what it was. And when she told me what the amount was, she came over to ask because there's no such thing of Venmo at this time.
Right, back then, no.
She's like, who should I make the check out to?
Right.
Well, when she told me how much the amount was, it was exactly how much I needed for real estate school.
That's the universe telling you something, right?
You make it out to me. I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I told your husband. I was like, no problem. I'll talk to my husband. No, I never did. I think he thinks he paid in full for that check to the state. But anyway, or for the fence.
That's okay.
And so I took that check and I turned around and endorsed it over to real estate school. And
wow.
There you go.
And then, for those of you who have not been in real estate, it's a very hard school. Well, what I'm saying is not the school itself, but the school of real estate is really difficult to get started, to get going. I mean, it's a 2-year project.
Absolutely.
Of hitting your head against the wall. It's very, very difficult.
And in the middle of that learning process.
It's not like your educational company, which blew up in a year and a half. It doesn't work that way in real estate.
No.
It takes a very long time to get.
And it's funny how the universe works too, because you're talking about the 2 years. It is true. It takes 2 to 3 years to really understand the craft and science and art that is real estate. I was about a year in when my husband suddenly died. And so, boy, talk about putting fire underneath your pants.
And how old were the kids at that point? At that point,
because now you're.
How old were the kids at that point?
The boys had just left, or were partway through their time at Texas A&M University, and my daughter had just started her senior year of high school. And then he was gone.
That's a tough time to have that happen.
It was interesting.
Yeah,
it was interesting. Yeah. And that's probably a whole nother podcast.
Yes, I agree. The struggle of getting through that.
That was interesting. Yeah. Here's a good takeaway as we're looking into the holiday season. Those of you trying to struggle for figuring out a gift to give to your loved ones, may I look you directly in the camera right now and say a big gift that doesn't cost much except your time and your thoughtfulness would be how you want things taken care of when you die. Because dying is expensive.
Yes.
Dying is
painful.
Dying is complicated. Yeah. Dying is a giant pain in the...
You know what?
Yeah. For all of you, for all that you leave behind.
Yes. They're picking up your mess.
They're picking up
because
your
everybody
mess.
leaves a mess, by the way.
Yes.
I've been through that process. It doesn't matter how organized you are. It's just the level of how organized, how much of a burden are you leaving?
Right.
Because it's a burden.
And here's Bess's off the fly quick tips. I mean, I would say grab a piece of paper right now, not your phone, because your phone might get locked up.
Yeah, right. Right.
But grab a piece of paper and write down all your passwords and all your logins for all your major stuff. Write down your favorite food.
Right.
I mean, because your family that's going to celebrate your life, they'd love to know that you loved hot honey bastard pizza from Cane-Rosso. And so, hey, maybe that's what you do for your, I don't know, plug into Cane.
It's complicated.
All that.
So real estate, you are Texas-based realtor. I don't think we said that in the beginning, that we're both Texas-based.
We're both in Texas, in Dallas.
In Dallas, Texas right now, but we can do business, outside of Dallas. And you have,
especially you, it's your superpower of lender extraordinaire.
Yes, but you've sold and helped people buy homes outside of Dallas.
Yes.
Like in Waco and where else?
Do that. Coordinated with Florida and Houston, North Carolina, California, all over the world.
And I love how you do it, because you don't necessarily do it by yourself. You oftentimes will partner with a local professional, with a local expert, because real estate is local. And so
the best real estate is hyperlocal, for sure.
Yeah, partnering with somebody that's knowledgeable, more knowledgeable than you are, always helps, right? It helps your clients, helps you, helps the other agents, that's the way to do it. And if you're looking to hire agents, you can start with your own local agent, who then can vet people on your behalf. And that's how I suggest people do it, and not just call somebody in Houston that they just found on the internet.
Don't 911 realtor.
Don't do that.
Well, and along those lines, don't 911 lender.
Right.
The
absolutely.
lenders are all different too. Mr. Superpower here with all the money.
Yes. Yes. He who has the gold makes the rules.
So tell us about the gears of real estate as far as the lending goes. You're the cash.
Yes. So I'm the sometimes unsung hero, because without the money, it doesn't happen, right? And so I think both of our professions are a little bit unsung heroes, and that's my chip on my shoulder. And apologize for that, but I've been a realtor. I've been a real estate broker. Now I'm a mortgage broker. I've been on both sides of that table, and it's really is, the public just does not understand how complicated this process is, and how important it is to have a professional team. And that's us. That's title company, that's inspectors, that's, all kinds of people that are involved in the background. And you need people like us to introduce you to the right people. So, but, as far as my history goes, it's, I grew up in Europe, came here to go to college, and, ended up, my first profession was a professional race car driver. So that ended at 24. And then I was left with, like you, when your husband died, now you're faced with, now what, right? And I had burned my boats, so to speak, and I had put all my effort into racing cars. And now that I wasn't racing cars anymore, I was completely lost. So I spent 6 months just trying to figure out, okay, what's next for me?
Wow.
$100,000 in credit card debt at the time. So it was a hard process of getting through that 6 months.
Well, at 24 years old.
Yeah. And so it's
You're not even old enough to know you don't know.
Right. Not an ideal start to your life, right? And I had just gotten married, so it was just difficult. So we decided we're going to, at the time we lived in Los Angeles, we moved to Houston to be on my parents' farm for 6 months. I worked on the farm for 6 months, and then we decided to move to Dallas. And part of that process was I just looked for things that were easily, professions that you could get into fairly easily. And real estate came as one of those professions, because to get your actual license is not difficult. What nobody told me was that it was going to be very difficult to get going, right? And so in my first 2 years, I did, 3 side hustle jobs, all kinds of things just to make ends meet, right? My then wife had a full-time job, so that was great. And so that led me to, buying into I became more successful as the years went on, bought into the company that I was working for as an agent, then, owned the company, sold the company, and got into financial planning after that because I had a bucket list of professions I wanted to try. And
nice.
I did not like the financial planning industry. Sorry,
Interesting.
financial planners. It was not for me. It's not my kind of, advisory role. And so
But you're a good strategist.
I am. I just didn't like the sales process of financial planning. And I did not enjoy that part of it. And so I got back to real estate in the form of a mortgage broker.
So you switched, so you took your strategic gear and shifted it.
Yes. So
to helping people get those keys.
It's strategy, it's financial planning, it's the real estate piece of it. A lot of times I have to hold people's hands because they're also vetting their agent a lot of times to what I have to back up what you're saying, and without me understanding real estate, that would be very difficult for me to do. But they come to me for advice too, just like they do for you, right? So it helps all around to have this kind of varied background. And both of us have been entrepreneurs. Both of us have failed or not succeeded at things, and that
fail is a fast learn.
Yeah, and it brings a lot of experience to the table, which helps our clients, right? Because
Absolutely.
we know what not to do.
Right.
And we know what to do. And they don't always listen to us, but when they do, they usually end up in a better place.
And we're looking forward to sharing that with everybody.
Right. And that's what this podcast is about, sharing those behind the scenes moments, behind the scenes solutions, behind the scenes trials and tribulations of buying a home, selling a home, and what it means to work with us. And hopefully you get to know us a little better and understand that we're coming at this from an educational standpoint, not from a sales standpoint. We're not trying to sell anybody.
With a baseline of sense of humor.
Yes, we're going to be entertaining enough for you to keep tuning in. So subscribe at the red button, click the bell, whatever you need to do to get notified that we have a new podcast coming out. So
there you go.
But that's where we are. So
thanks for joining us.
Keys and Gears, the podcast for real estate.